is how do you keep you talked about VOD reviews, but is there anything else in your kind of daily life that you do to keep yourself on top of the game?
Like, casting is no longer just a job. Casting is a lifestyle. So I've got to be in the gym. I go to the gym 6 times a week to make sure that I kind of put myself. This is my fault because I went for Monica leg day, so I kind of put myself in a corner. I can't.
It's like you might as well have just like called yourself Chad. My name's Harry Chad leg day.
Like, if I didn't call myself leg day, I wouldn't be going to the gym so much because I really enjoy it, but it takes up a lot of time. And it's hard when you're traveling, but I kind of put myself in the corner. I've got to remain physically fit, or I'm a betrayal of my name, and therefore, like, my brand is inconsistent. But yeah, like, living as a caster is brand management. Like, I spend a huge amount of time on social media. For better or worse, I am addicted to Twitter, and that's led to me basically getting an undergraduate's degree in fucking memes. Like, I just spend so much time trying to think up funny or interesting tweets, and I had a banger today that's basically cross-referencing Shrek with Overwatch. Like, I'm a genius at, honestly. Like, if I fail in casting, I lied about streaming. I'm going to social media management for esports teams because I make some fire memes.
You strike me as a person who like types something up and then you go, huh. And then you enter.
That's my criteria for if I'm going to post something. If I laughed while making it, then I'm like, okay, this is. If I made it, I'm like, I haven't laughed at this. I'm just trying to force something out of this. I'm like, yeah, nah, delete it. But yeah, that's the criteria. If I laugh at myself while I'm making it, I'm like, yeah, this is going out there. I think this is funny.
I enjoy your tweets. You make me laugh 75% of the time, so I think that's pretty good for you.
That's a good occurrence rate when it comes to tweets. Like 75% of the time, that's above. We're like, I'm not unfollowing this for 25% that are unfunny.
So for some reason in my tweets, I've decided that anything that I talk about personally, I always end with a period. And it's so like not me. Like I'm so like boisterous and like in your face. But for some reason on Twitter, I'm like, I hurt my nose today. And that's it. That's it. So maybe I need to do a little bit of the leg day. If the test, I got a chortle before I send that tweet.
I always type with as much proper grammar and punctuation as I can. Wow. The English degree and I forget the word for punctuation. Wasted money, everybody.
Well,
it's all about character limits as well. Like, I'm like, where can I shave this off? Can I get rid of this period because I need another character? Like, it's a daily struggle in my life. I'm like, can I give away this period to have that extra character?
Well, you're a character, leg day. I hope you know that. So let's talk a little bit more seriously about something because we in Tier 2 Overwatch, just like to put it into perspective, Ham and I and Avast were the last new hires for Tier 2 Overwatch in the last year, right? So there hasn't been any new openings, and going into next year, there's been whisperings of expansion and new casters, this and that. But right now, there seems to be a dearth of casting opportunities. I mean, bringing up Rivalcade, it's you and Jaws and ZP and Avast, right? So what would you tell someone who is like, hey, I want to be an Overwatch caster? Like what would you honestly tell them in their process?
Fully honestly, move in horizontally, not vertically. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. Unless you are a god, there's a big line. If you're just starting now, like, you got to get past Kenobi, you got to get past you got to get past Big Hungry Phil. Blank's only just come up. You got to get past so many people who are incredibly talented.
Lemon and Hurix, yep.
Yeah, Lemon, Hurix, freaking Panda, I hold shift. You've got such a big queue to get past. And if you're at the back of that queue, like,
got to be bringing something special, right? And
you've got to already have a social media following. You've got to have a big old Instagram. You've got to be hot. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. These are going out on Disney XD and ESPN. These guys have sort of like, I imagine, vetoes on who appears on their screen. Like, you've got to be someone that a TV executive is going to look at, either because you're a character or because you're attractive, and be like, I want that on my programming. Like, you can get through Tier 2 just looking anyway. And I hate to bring this up because it seems so superficial when it comes to casting, but if I want to give honest advice to people, like I spend so much time in the gym because I need to be conscious that if I don't look good, my chance of getting into Overwatch League are lowered because I may be appearing on TV. And I think if you want to get into Overwatch at the moment in Tier 2, you are joining the back of a big queue. Unless you're really good, you've got to move in horizontally. Go to another game. Ideally, go to an Activision Blizzard game, like Hearthstone. Go to Call of Duty. Call of Duty is currently opening up its path to pro scene. There are opportunities there. And then move in sideways. Because otherwise, you've got a long queue that you're at the back of. And I hate to be so negative about it, but I don't want to mislead anyone about what it is that will get you into casting. Like, like I said before, I was super lucky. I basically lucked into a job because I started at the right time. Like, timing was everything for me.
You and me both, man. Like, being prepared is just opportunity meets preparation, right? So when the opportunity came in and you got called up, because we actually just missed each other in our BGG times, right? You had just gotten called up to the EU contender side of things, and I just got into the server and started casting with Ham/Evie, like Ham/Evie. Who says that? And so, you know, we just missed each other, but at the same time, like if you weren't part of that BGG server when there is like 30 people in it, right? Before BGG special projects, before Open Division, right? Before South American contenders, you were already behind, right? And that was 2 years ago. And so maybe a little bit longer. And so what we got to do with BGG is we became the voices of Tier 2. And then since Ham and I were on there, along with Lemon, who's had a lot of success so far, along with Herix and some other people, Blank is another really great example of that. We got ahead of the tide. And in esports, you have to stay on top of the wave. If you miss the wave, you just got to find a new one sometimes, right? Because you're not going to catch up.
Yeah, like luckily at the moment there is also the same way that I got in that's currently open, and that's that no one seems to currently be doing rebroadcasts of stuff like NEXT LANs. Like that's how I got noticed, and I brought Evie along on that because Evie was the only one stupid enough to do it with me. Bless her soul. It's like, Evie, you want to do something stupid that might be a little bit illegal?
And if I had a nickel for every time I heard that, man. Yeah, but like, and it's all about the grind, right? And you're going to have to work extra hard right now. I'm not saying don't learn how to cast Overwatch. It is, in my opinion, the hardest game to cast. I've casted a lot of titles, and it is by far the hardest. Everything seems super slow compared to Overwatch when you go over there and cast it. But in general, like, be passionate about it. Learn casting, I think, is like the first thing you need to do. Find resources so you can become a good caster, and then like you said, latch onto yourself horizontally, right? Cast an Activision Blizzard game, cast Siege, which is always going to be ramping up in popularity, in my opinion. That's been a big surprise for a lot of people. There's opportunities in Rocket League, and then, like you said, there are opportunities in games that are quote unquote dead, like Heroes of the Storm, that no one's casting anymore. So you would be the only one. I'm currently on a TFT podcast, and we're like the only TFT podcast, and so people are watching it, right? And so it's really important to understand your strategy too. If you're going into it blindly, that's awesome that you want to learn a craft. It's like learning an instrument, right? But just like in music, there are hundreds of thousands of flute players that are better than you right now, right? And you need to get to the top 10, and it's going to take you multiple years to do that. And in esports,
what are you doing to make it so that in the same time they aren't getting further ahead than you?
Yeah, right. And so like in esports, you don't have that time, right? It's just sometimes you just have to move on. It's unfortunate, but I think the landscape hasn't technically been completely taken so far because there are going to be some changes. There might be some changes in contenders in 2020. None of us know so far. None of us know if we're casting it or not. But
no one's going to be contacted until like a week before. That's just how it goes. Like these things are super liquid.
Yeah, and you just got to be ready for the opportunity and be prepared for it. And it's an unfortunate thing to talk about, but I think you also do have to be realistic that Hearthstone has had the same casters up until recently for a very, very long time, right? Once you get a crew that people like, it's hard to break out of that unless you do have that big following already, unless you're already a content creator. So that's the other piece of advice that I like to give is if you really want to get into esports and Overwatch specifically, make content.
Yeah, be a brand. Like, who could move into casting and be pretty successful right now? The Master Crook. Like, people know him from his content. People think he's funny. And, well, he is funny. People don't just think he's funny, but people know he's funny is the thing. So he could be on a broadcast. He and Pachimari could duo cast something in the least serious way possible, and people would watch that because they enjoy this content. They like what these people have to say. So being a caster isn't good enough anymore to get ahead of people unless you are a god. Unless you are Uber 2, that's not working. But also something I wish someone had said to me when I first started casting is that casting isn't necessarily its own thing as well. Like it is its own thing, but don't think of it as just esports casting. Think of it as storytelling.
Yep.
Because it took so long for me to realize that it was storytelling. And it's for telling of stories, for getting people invested in players, in matches, and telling people why they give a shit about what they're watching, which is what makes a successful caster. And for a long time, I thought, and advice that I often have to impart upon other color casters, not because they're bad, but because they have the same understanding as me, is that I'm a color caster. Cool. I'm going to tell everyone exactly what I think about this game and tell them all the analysis that I notice because I am freaking smart about Overwatch. And people need to know that because to a degree, like you need to go through that phase because you need to gain legitimacy as a color caster. People need to be able to trust what you say. And analysis is a good way to do that, but you can't do it at the expense of telling a story. You can't just pack your cast full of analysis because sure, you're going to look smart, but you also look a bit like a dickhead who doesn't
it's a
really...
show.
Yeah, like, people tune out because you're vomiting information at them, and they're concentrating on too many things. Like, in League, I think you can get away with a little bit more analysis because you've got the time. In Overwatch, you don't have the time, and the audience don't have the mental bandwidth. We talked earlier about it's a confusing game to watch at the best of times. Currently, incredibly confusing to watch because of all the shields. The audience don't have the mental bandwidth, and you don't have the mental bandwidth to notice things while you're analyzing as well, to pick up all the information that you're currently throwing out, while also being able to watch what's on screen. It's just simply how the brain works, and you need to pander to how the brain works.
Yep, I totally agree with you, man. And so, yeah, if you want to be a caster, though, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm sure Leg Day would be happy to talk to you
I
as
feel
well.
it all the time. I love talking to people about it.
Yeah, and so like talk to us. We'll be honest with you, and we'll give you honest feedback. We want there to be a nice crew of people to take the mantle because these Overwatch League guys aren't immortal, right? Eventually they'll get too old. Hopefully, Overwatch League Season 20, we might see some new casting talent show up there. Maybe that's when Ham and I will finally make our way up. But in the end, we'll be realistic with you. We want the field to be collaborative. We want the field to feel good and have you be wanted in it. And please contact us.
We care about these players as well.
Exactly.
Like, I don't want to leave my players with, one of the better word, a bunch of amateurs. No, I want them to have skilled people who can tell their stories and make people care about their journeys. Because that's my goal as a contenders caster. That's the mission statement. Make people care that these players are going to go to Overwatch League. And if I don't think that casters will be able to do the players that I consider basically, they are my story babies. I need people who I can trust who are going to nurture this story and continue to have the audience care about these players. So we're always interested in having new, better casters because also it keeps us on our toes. Like, complacency has never helped anyone in the competitive sector, ever.
Yep, totally agree, man.